Hey everybody, it's Retired at 40. I've waited a really long time, it seems like forever, to do this video. Just about 1 year now I've had my Harvestright, and the reason I waited so long is I really wanted to put it through its paces, really make sure that if I was going to give an honest review, that it needed to go through lots and lots and lots of cycles, because things that seemed like they were negative in the beginning really don't seem like they're that big a deal anymore. So I've done probably about 140 or 150 cycles. I don't really know if that's average for most people. It just kind of depends how you use the freeze dryer. And I feel like that's definitely enough to give you an honest review on this. So I think the easiest way to do this is I'm going to give you some positives over here and some negatives over here. So the first big negative, and the thing that's going to be the deciding factor for most people if you're getting ready to purchase one, is obviously the price. It's a pretty substantial investment, and that's also why I wanted to make sure that I gave plenty of time before I gave an opinion on this. That you can't really find them anywhere other than Harvestright, and there's a couple of small dealers that will deal them, so the price is pretty much stuck on that. A big positive for me is the food quality. I mean, just look at this, it looks amazing. And this isn't a commercial, this is just me, a guy in his basement, freeze drying food. The quality of the food is really, really good. There are a few things that don't freeze dry very well, and a few things that don't rehydrate very well, and a few things that don't reconstitute very well. But for the most part, I haven't really found a whole lot that doesn't do well. So kind of going along with the food quality, another thing that was real important to me that maybe isn't that important to other people is I can choose what I freeze dry. I'm not limited to whatever the major brands of freeze drying foods are offering. I can freeze dry whatever I want. If the store has 20 pounds of pork on sale, I can go buy it and freeze dry it and get a great deal on it. I'm not limited to what one of the major companies is offering at that point and stuck at their price. And not only just stuck at a price that you can choose, but what is in the food that you're freeze drying. What I've found is a lot of the big name freeze dried food companies, there's a lot of stuff in their food that I don't really want to eat or put into my body, and I like being able to freeze dry my own vegetables, my own meat that I know where it came from, things like that. Alright, our next negative is this guy right here. And since I bought my freeze dryer, they've actually made an improvement. They offer a different pump now. I don't have any first-hand experience with it. I've heard kind of both ways on it, and they also have upgraded to an oilless pump, which is a pretty substantial increase in the price, but it might be worth it. The oilless is very quiet, and you don't have to change the oil in it. So you may have seen my video on my pump problems pretty much instantly when I got this machine. And if you haven't, take a minute to check it out. I'll put the link on the screen here. Since I got the pump back, I haven't had any other issues with it. It's run really well. It is a little bit noisy, but it seems to do what it's supposed to do. I just stick mine in the basement where you can't really hear very much anyway. So my next negative is the noise, which kind of goes along with the pump, obviously, because the pump is what makes all the racket. This is kind of the startup noise that it makes. It's not always this loud, and it kind of chills out after a while, but it does make a pretty good racket. Alright, this is what it sounds like after it's had a little bit of time to warm up and some oil's gone through it. Not quite as bad, but you can still hear it. Alright, the next thing I want to point out that could be a negative for some people, I don't really think it's that big a deal, is the capacity of the machine. Mine is the medium size, and I have 4 shelves. And to me, it seems like it's fine. When you first start doing it, it's one of those things that seems like it's a big negative because, oh, well, I want to freeze, 10 pounds of strawberries or whatever, and you can't fit them all in there, and you're waiting, 2 days or whatever it's going to take to freeze dry them. For me, I've kind of found, like, as I've gotten over the newness of the machine, it's plenty. It's plenty of room to do things. In fact, a lot of times I'll have to find, a couple things here and there just to freeze dry, just to fill the trays. Next positive is a really big positive for me. and that's food storage. If you are looking for something that's long-term storage, then you can go into a Mylar bag. They claim 20 plus years of storage. That's a long, long time. Even with meats, which is pretty amazing. If you go into a ball jar, which is what I like to do for vegetables and stuff like that we eat normally, that's supposed to be 2 to 3 years. And so far, I mean, I've opened stuff up that I did the first day of freeze drying, and it's just as good as the day that we put it in there. The next one is power consumption, and to me this is a positive and a negative. If you haven't seen my power consumption video, take a minute to check it out. It'll give you an idea of what kind of power this consumes. And in my opinion, the video kind of shows what seems to be like a lot of power consumption, which is a negative. But the positive side of that is I've completely eliminated my deep freeze, and I'm not running a deep freeze 24/7, 365 anymore. Anything that I used to put into the deep freeze, you know, I've just kind of gotten into the habit of freeze drying it right away if there's a sale on something, or if, you know, something's getting ready to go bad, or we can't eat it fast enough. Instead of going into the deep freeze, it goes right into the freeze dryer and on my shelf, and then it's good for 20 years. Imagine running a deep freeze for 20 years. Think about the cost of that. Alright, the next big negative for most people is going to have to do with the pump again, and that's the oil changes. And to be real honest, it does kind of suck. You have to change the oil every single time you run a cycle. But once again, it's kind of one of those things for me. Once I got used to it, and once I got the hang of it, and you just kind of make it part of your process, changing the oil is really not that big a deal. You can have it done in 2 or 3 minutes. If you're not a real handy type person, you know, it might seem intimidating at first, but it's really not that bad. I mean, it's pretty black and white. And then another thing is, after you do about 20 to 30 cycles, you do actually have to pull this front cover off and clean this whole inside out, clean all the extra water and gunk and stuff that's built up in here. Also sounds intimidating, really not that big a deal, and stay tuned, I'll have a video on that pretty soon here. Although the pump to me is the weak spot, the user friendliness of everything else is actually really high quality. The machine's built very well, there's nothing cheesy about it. All the menus and stuff and the interface of the model it's done really well. Everything's really good quality in my opinion. The next negative is the amount of time that a batch takes. Average batch takes anywhere from 20 hours on the low end to up to even 48 hours on the high end if it's something that's has a lot of moisture in it. On the other hand, I don't think it's anything that can be sped up very, very much, at least in a home use type freeze dryer. My next negative is this. It takes up a lot of space. This is the medium size, and it's probably about the size of a one of those dorm refrigerators, I guess, if it's like the bigger size dorm refrigerator. On the flip side of that though, as I have gotten rid of my deep freeze, it's a lot smaller than a deep freeze, so it actually takes up less room than a deep freeze would, even the smallest kind. The next positive is one of those things that's a positive for me, and some will argue with it, is money savings. If you approach freeze drying as a savvy money saving type person, you can definitely save a lot of money. Everything I freeze dry is stuff that is either on the end of its shelf life or on sale at the store, or things that come out of my garden. So whether you save money or not is kind of dependent on what you're going to freeze dry and how you're going to approach the situation. If it's the end of August and I have 150 cucumbers that I can't do anything with, I can save every single one of those in a ball jar or in a Mylar bag, whereas normally they would just go bad because you couldn't eat them fast enough. Okay, I'm going to give you my final negative, and that is that you have to be a little bit handy just over the course of time with the Harvestright. Even I guess from the moment that you buy it and unpack it, putting it together, there's not real great directions. I made a YouTube video just because of that reason, because I couldn't really find a good source otherwise. So you do have to be a little bit handy over time. You know, if one of these hoses starts to leak or something, you have to be able to tighten up a hose. You have to be able to diagnose a few minor issues here and there. That's just kind of the nature of the machine. This is the only machine that you can buy for residential use. Everything else is a commercial use machine that's going to cost you tens of thousands of dollars and be 10 times as big as this. So transitioning from that last negative into my next positive is, if you do run into any kind of problems, the customer service of Harvestright Every experience I've had with them, absolutely fantastic. Usually when you contact customer service, it's not because you're calling to tell them how great their stuff is. It's that you have a problem or you're having some kind of issue with it. I've had to replace this door. They sent one to me instantly. I also had a pump issue, which I made a video on, just kind of the course of my problem with that. But everyone was super helpful. All the technical support people are very good. The people that answer the phones are very good. Everyone's very friendly, very helpful. They want you to be happy with the product. They're not just trying to push you off to deal with it on your own. And you can take this as a positive or a negative. This is very new technology for home use. Freeze drying has been around for a long time, but as far as being able to sit this in your basement like this, and the average Joe Blow being able to freeze dry food in his house, it's a pretty new technology, and they're still working out the bugs, and they'll do everything they can to keep your business and keep you happy. So I saved the best for last, and that's when you freeze dry, you're saving 97% of the nutrients in the food. Whereas if you're freezing or canning, anything like that, you're losing a lot of the food taste and quality, I think. And just the sheer amount of food that you can freeze dry. Once you get the hang of it and once you get into the habit of freeze drying things, when you're able to save leftovers and extra food and things that have been on sale at the store, you can really start stockpiling food quickly. And it's very appealing for someone who likes food preservation, preppers, homesteaders, people like that. They're very drawn to the Harvestright for that reason. Harvestright claims that the average user saves 1,500 pounds of food per year. That's a lot of food. If that would be lots and lots and lots of number 10 containers. They claim about $10,000 worth of food. So is the Harvestright for you? I would say weigh out all of the options. It's going to depend on your situation for sure. For me, I give it 2 thumbs up. I love mine. If you use it and you do what it's meant to do, you will be happy with it. Whether you save money on it or whether you break even or whether you have good experiences is going to be based on your type of living and your situation. You can always check out my other YouTube videos. I've tried to answer some of the big questions you would have on the Harvestright, and when you do purchase yours, you can go to my video on how to set it up, because there's really not much else out there on how to set it up. And as always, you can always contact me with questions, comments, concerns. Take a minute to subscribe to my channel and click the bell notification so you can get future videos. This is Retired at 40, reminding you to live life simple. We'll catch you next time.